After over 3 years with the Red Wing Iron Ranger, it's a completely different boot than when I bought it new. If you're spending over $300 on a pair of boots, you want to make sure it's actually going to last and that it's actually comfortable. In this review, you're going to hear about the 8 most common issues I hear about the Red Wing Iron Ranger. I've had the Red Wing Iron Ranger for over 3 years now, and in that time, I've reviewed over 100 different boots from all kinds of brands. I feel like I can finally tell you the truth about the Iron Ranger. But I'm not just sharing my experience. I also visited Cobbler, a friend of mine who's broken down, repaired, and customized hundreds of Iron Rangers. So I'm not sharing just my experience, but also what he sees as the common issues with the Red Wing Iron Ranger, what he loves, and then the problems that he sees come up over and over again. First question is, who should get these boots? Are they work boots, casual boots? Before we can answer that though, you need to know how they look, what they're made of, and if there are any better alternatives for your needs out there. The Red Wing Iron Ranger is one of the most iconic American boots. They have a unique design that's beloved by guys from all different walks of life, from bikers to Brooklyn hipsters. Red Wing builds the Iron Ranger on a number 8 last, and a last is basically a plastic form that shoemakers use to stretch the leather around. That's what gives each boot its unique shape. Now remember this point because it's going to make a significant difference when it comes time to get the right size for your Iron Rangers. Now because of this last, and this is not the one, but this is a last, but not the one, it has this unique bump toe. Now if I compare the Red Wing Iron Ranger to a dressier boot like the Thursday Captain, you can already see the height difference in the toe. Given this difference, this makes the Iron Ranger much more casual. Now compared to more of a work boot, the Thorogood mock toe, you can see that there's a lot more shape and contour in the style of the Iron Ranger. Because of this, I think the Iron Ranger is an excellent balance if you want a casual boot that's not so slim and narrow, but slimmer boots like the Thursday Captain, they're going to work well with slim fit jeans, but if you wear straight cut or even relaxed fit jeans, having a bit more bulk and heft, to me, I think it looks more balanced overall. That's an area where the Red Wing Iron Ranger really shines. Red Wing Iron Ranger as it is today was released around 2007, but the inspiration for the design and the build date back to the 1930s, so it is a true heritage boot. The most obvious design feature you're going to see is the cap toe. Now this is a true cap toe, meaning that the toe is actually 2 layers of leather. So you have the vamp and then another layer of leather stitched on top. Some boots just kind of skive and sew a separate toe on for the look, but the Iron Ranger really has that double layer there. This is the 8111, which is amber harness. This is from SP Foot Tanning Company, which is a Red Wing owned leather tannery. They do some of the most interesting leathers on boots today. The insole is a thick 7 to 8 millimeter piece of vegetable tan leather that's basically stitched directly to the outsole with a little layer of cork and a steel shank in the midsection. Interestingly, there's no true midsole on the Iron Ranger. To show you what I mean, I have another boot here, and this boot is called the Grant Stone Diesel. As you can see on the Grant Stone Diesel, there is a welt that goes around the entire exterior of the boot, and that welt is attached to a leather midsole, and then you have the outsole. So a positive aspect of ditching the midsole, like you get on the Iron Ranger, is that it makes it actually a ½ pound lighter per pair of boots. So that also means you can break in the underfoot a little bit faster than you would if there were 2 fat pieces of leather stacked on top of each other. Now on the negative side, there's less durable leather underfoot, and that cork in here can compress to the point where the insole feels almost like a little deflated and starts to crack. So that's something we're going to see firsthand when we go visit Cobbler Tobias later in this video. A lot of people wonder if they should get the Iron Ranger or the Blacksmith. I have both right here in my hands. And honestly, it's hard to recommend one over the other. Besides the differences in the leather options, the clearest difference is that the Blacksmith is a plain toe boot. It's built on the same number 8 last, so you can really see it has a very similar shape, but you can also tell how much bulk is added when you have that cap toe on the Iron Ranger. The other differences are fairly minor and all cosmetic. They only really affect the look of the boot, and even then, I don't think you notice those things at like a quick glance, but when we look closer, there's some definite differences. The construction, however, is basically exactly the same. It's the same insole, same welt, same outsole, so the question really is, do you like the cap toe style or not? Now, back to the main question we're trying to answer. Does the style of the Iron Ranger work for you? I think if you want it for purely style purposes, then you're already armed with the info you need to make that decision. But if you want it for work, I really do think the lack of the leather midsole, that's going to cause some longevity issues, especially if you're working and sweating in that boot a lot. However, most guys get this for a mix of style and work, so to me, the lack of the leather midsole, it's not a death sentence for this boot, and it actually can be a positive because it allows for a lighter boot. You're going to see what happens to the Iron Ranger when the insole is overworked in just a second. But first, I want to tell you about Camel City Mill socks. So these are premium American-made socks. Use a material called Ironside Merino wool, and they help keep your feet from sweating even under the toughest working conditions. Now, this is my own sock brand, and our bestseller, the Lightweight, is the only sock I ever wear with my Iron Rangers. And when I recently broke in these Blacksmiths right here, I didn't get any blisters like I did with my Iron Ranger 3 years ago. I really wish I had the Lightweight back then. Now, on the top of the foot, there's a no sweat vent where you release the most heat and moisture from your foot. Plus, there are channels at the bottom of the sock that add padding where it's needed, but still still allow for maximum breathability. We also use nylon fortification at the heel and the toe, and that's what makes these socks so durable that we can back all of our socks with a 10-year durability guarantee. So if you're interested in high-quality American-made footwear like the Iron Ranger, why stop at the boots? Pick up a pair of Camel City Mill's best-selling lightweight sock right now using the first link in the description below. To find out the most common breaking point of the Iron Ranger, I visited my friend Cobbler Tobias, who co-owns Wyatt and Dad. Wyatt and Dad, they're a premier cobbler in North Carolina, and I'd wager that they repair the most Iron Rangers outside of Red Wing's own shoe repair service. So I went and visited him, and here's what he had to say. So Tobias, you're with Wyatt and Dad Cobbler Company, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think besides Red Wing, you guys probably resold the most Iron Rangers maybe in the country?
It's been definitely our best selling boot. We get more Iron Rangers than any other boot.
Yeah, so if you guys ever want to mail in your Iron Rangers, Wyatt and Dad, these guys are the experts at cobbling in general. I have another video where I resold a Thursday boot and you guys showed me the ropes. It was incredible. But yeah, so if eventually you get a pair of Iron Rangers, you can send them in new. There are a couple new pairs here. This is a place to go for Iron Rangers. So I wanted to come talk to you, Tobias, because you have an inside, I got my opinion. I've worn Iron Rangers. I'm wearing them right now. I've worn them for a couple years, but you've seen the inside of hundreds of pairs. So, well, first of all, yeah, what's your overall opinion on the Iron Ranger? What do you think about it?
It's probably one of my favorite boots. Not just because it's a good looking boot, but because it's made to be recrafted. That's one of the things that we get across a lot of brands is, there's a lot of great brands out there that are quality boots, but they make them in a way that's just a little bit more difficult for us to resole them. It's a little bit harder to take them apart, where the Iron Ranger, Red Wing has their own recraft program. Yeah. So they just make it easy to be rebuilt and customized, which is really what's awesome about it. I can knock out a bunch of these boots a lot faster than I can a lot of these other brands. So
what kind of resoles do you do? Do you mainly do kind of factory reset, just kind of bring it back to normal? Do you have a mix of people doing lots of customization options?
Here lately, it's been a lot more custom work. We do get a lot that people just want it back to the factory. They bought the boot because they liked the boot how it was. Yeah. And there's, some people find that there's some shortcomings in the way that the factory builds the boots. A lot of people don't like the lower heel, so they want to add a leather heel stack to it. Or the sole, a lot of them come with the Vibram 430, and some people don't find that it grips enough and for their certain conditions, and so they want to try different things, and it's really cool.
Nice. So when you see all kinds of Iron Rangers come in, they're worn out, what's the part that kind of wears out fastest?
Usually the heel. Most people wear out your heel before you wear out your sole because you strike it when you're walking, so the heel wears out quickly. But for me, it's the insole. Okay. So Red Wing uses a nice veg tan insole. It's real thick, but over time, especially if they're getting them wet and actually working in them and stuff, and that insole will dry out, it'll crack, it'll curl up, it'll be really uncomfortable.
Is there any way to avoid that, or is that just a natural process with boots?
You could avoid it by taking care of your boots a little bit more when you take them off after they've gotten wet, and making sure that you dry them out properly. Putting shoe trees in them helps, but overall, it's just going to happen eventually.
What do you think is the oldest pair of boots you've ever seen across any boot?
I have some actually here I think they're World War II boots.
Oh, sweet.
They're not reenactment boots. They're the actual legit ones.
Heck
yeah, the leather is super brittle on them. I think of every time I see them, I'm like, how can I do this? Because I know the guy. Eventually, I'm going to get him rebuilt, and so he wants to wear them. So
of the different leathers, you pretty much have at least all the main ones. Which one do you prefer?
As far as personal opinion and looks, if I were to purchase another pair, it would be the Copper Rough and Tough.
The Copper Rough and Tough.
It's just a gorgeous leather.
I'm a Amber Harness man all the way through. Ride or die Amber Harness all the way. Right. So if people want to send in their boots, what do they do? How do they get their boots to you, the master, Tobias, to get their resole for their Iron Rangers?
It's pretty straightforward. You can come visit us at one of our locations. We have a location in Charlotte and in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, or you can mail them directly to us. You can visit our website, WyattandDad.com. We have a pretty straightforward mail-in process.
Sweet.
Once they come in, our CEO, Tony Wyatt himself, will call you, go over everything, all the details, stitch color, sole, however you want it done. And then it comes to me, gets torn down and rebuilt and sent back out.
Thank you so much for having me and showing me the Iron Rangers and giving me your opinions.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
Go, man. Cheers. Thank you to Cobbler Tobias and also Wyatt and Dad. Now, if you want to customize or repair your Iron Rangers, you can send them in from anywhere in the country. I have more information about how to find them down in the description below. So Cobbler Tobias mentioned that the insole was the most common breaking point for the Iron Ranger. And I'm going to show you how you can get around that in a second. But first I want to talk about one of the most common problems people have with new Iron Rangers. A lot of people talk about how tough the break-in is. It's one of the most common DMs I get. First of all, Camel City Mill socks, they will help, but I actually think the Iron Ranger gets a bad reputation for this when it's not truly deserved. So what's the most common misconception about these boots? So many people gripe and complain about the break-in period of the Iron Ranger. And I'll admit, I also complained about it too when I first made a review video of these boots 3 years ago.
Breaking these in will test your spirit, it will test your soul, because it is not a comfortable boot right away.
And I wanted to address this because I think it still turns a lot of people off of this boot for something that is not truly Red Wing's fault, but instead it's the fault of the shoe industry in general. What do I mean? Well, the Iron Ranger is the first good quality heritage boot that a lot of people get. There are thousands of people every year who go from wearing super cushy sneakers, all of a sudden they're just standing on a little piece of leather and a piece of hard rubber, and that's it. And this makes your foot feel sore because for the first time in your life, you don't have a ton of synthetic foam under your foot to cushion your heel and the ball of your foot. So for a heritage boot, the Iron Ranger is actually pretty flexible. Because the Iron Ranger has such a broad reputation of people switching from foam footbeds to leather, you can just read all over Reddit that the Iron Ranger is a super uncomfortable boot, when the truth is, these people's feet, they just haven't adjusted to the lack of shock absorption that you get with heritage boots. I thought this too because the Iron Ranger was the second boot I ever got that was like good. The first was the Thursday Captain, which still has that foam footbed in it. It's basically like a hybrid sneaker slash heritage boot build. So the Iron Ranger was the first time I was only standing on pure leather and rubber. And at the time, I thought it was a tough break-in. But now after breaking in over 100 different pairs of boots, I can confidently say breaking in the Iron Rangers isn't that bad. In fact, it's easy. But if you're switching from sneakers, you can expect some soreness as your feet adjust to having less shock absorption overall. It's gonna be more of a break-in for your feet than it is for the boots. Like they say, pain is just weakness entering into your body. I promised I'd show you how you can help keep the insole of the Iron Ranger from cracking, and I will. Here is your entire care guide for keeping your Iron Rangers in tip-top shape. Now, each leather is different, and you're gonna need to treat the amber harness here differently than you would a mule skinner or a rough and tough leather. I have a full breakdown of how to care for each specific leather in my Red Wing boot care guide on BootSpy.com, which you can find in the link in the description below. But there are a few things that remain true regardless of the leather you have on your Iron Rangers. First of all, you should always use cedar shoe trees when you're not wearing them. This is very easy. You can find these for cheap on Amazon. This helps two things. That cap toe, it stays quite firm, but the instep right here can get really flat and can look like absolute clown shoes if you're not doing this. Trust me, I have seen it many, many times. But the cedar shoe trees also help absorb some of the moisture, which is gonna do the most to prevent all that drying and cracking from the insoles that we saw when we visited Cobbler Tobias' shop. Other than that, just taking a horsehair brush and brushing your boots down once a month or something like that with no conditioner or anything like that, that's gonna help keep dirt out of the welt area, and it's gonna give the leather a bit of a refresh. Again, if you wanna know what the best leather conditioners are or the cleaning methods you can use for the various leathers, then check out the Red Wing Leather Care Guide on BootSpy.com, link down below. All right, so let's just talk about my experience. I've reviewed over 100 boots from the most popular brands over 3 years, and over that time, I have owned my Iron Rangers. So what do I think? How often do I actually wear them? Even though over there I have over 50 different pairs of boots. I go through phases. There are some weeks where I wear my Iron Rangers the entire time. There are some weeks where I don't wear them at all. I will say over the 3 years, this is the boot I've worn more than any other boot. And that doesn't mean it's necessarily my top recommendation, but I do love the Red Wing Iron Ranger. I think the style is so unique. I think the leathers Red Wing uses are super underrated. To me, this is the perfect boot if your lifestyle is a mix of casual and work use. They're one of the most iconic and popular boots in America, and after 3 years of owning them, I believe they have earned and deserve that popularity for show. Now, if you do want to see the boots that I recommend personally most often, then watch this video next.